James never believed he would hear the voice of a creature thought to be only legend. Deep in the forest, Bigfoot not only revealed itself but also spoke of men, of danger, and of trust. It saw humans as both destroyers and protectors, leaving James with words he would never forget. This story tells of their brief, powerful bond. James Paul was 58 years old and lived alone in a small home near the edge of the forest. He enjoyed the quiet and the simple routine of his days, but lately something unusual had begun to disturb that peace. It started with large footprints pressed deep into the soft ground near his property. They were far too big to belong to any person he knew, and much wider than a bear's track. At first, he thought maybe a prankster had made them, but the size and weight were too real to ignore. Not long after, James noticed trees broken in strange ways. Thick branches had been snapped high up, as if by something with tremendous strength. The patterns didn't match storm damage, and there were no signs of logging equipment. Around the same time, he began finding small stacks of stones left neatly near the edges of his yard. No neighbors had reason to do such things, and James lived far enough out that strangers rarely passed by. One evening, while walking along the tree line, he felt something watching him. The woods had gone unnaturally quiet, and his skin prickled with unease. He stopped, turned his head, and that was when he saw it. A towering figure stood just beyond the shadows of the trees. Covered in dark hair, it was massive and upright. James expected it to charge or run, but instead, the creature simply watched him calmly, almost with thought, studying him in silence. After that first night, James Paul could not forget what he had seen. He wondered if it would ever return, or if it had only been passing through. He did not have to wait long for his answer. Within the week, the figure appeared again, standing at the edge of the woods as if watching the house. It did not come closer, and it did not act aggressive. It simply stood, then slipped back into the trees. James decided to try something. The next morning, he placed a few apples on an old stump not far from his yard. He walked away without looking back. When he returned later, the apples were gone. In their place were two small sticks crossed neatly over each other. James stared at them for a long time, certain this was no accident. Over the next several days, he continued the experiment. Sometimes he left bread, other times vegetables. Each time, the food disappeared, and each time, something was left in return: arranged rocks, twigs in patterns, or a feather laid carefully on the stump. The exchanges grew into a routine. James did not see the creature up close during these times, but he knew it was there. He often felt its presence, strong and watchful, just beyond the trees. There was no threat in it, no sense of danger. Instead, there was patience, as though the creature wanted him to know it meant no harm. Neither man nor beast crossed the line of fear. Neither attacked or fled. Instead, a quiet understanding formed between them. The forest no longer felt like it only belonged to James. It felt shared, as if he had been chosen to take part in something few people ever experienced. A strange bond was slowly taking shape. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the trees, James Paul sat outside on his porch. The forest was quiet, but not in its usual peaceful way. It was the kind of silence that made every sound stand out sharper. That was when he heard it, a low, guttural noise coming from the tree line. At first, James thought it was an animal. Maybe a bear grunting, or some kind of large cat. But the sound rose and fell in a way that didn't match any wild creature he knew. He leaned forward, listening closer. The noise came again, louder this time. It rumbled like a chest full of stones, deep and uneven. Then, within that growl, James heard something that froze him in place. Food, safe, friend. The words were broken, stretched, and heavy, but they were words all the same. James felt the hair stand up on the back of his neck. He wasn't imagining it. Something out there had just spoken. He stood slowly, his eyes locked on the dark line of trees. The figure stepped forward, just enough for him to see its outline against the fading light. The same massive creature from before, covered in dark hair, shoulders wide as a doorframe, stood still as stone. Again, the deep voice carried through the air. Food, safe. Then a pause, followed by one more word. Friend. James's breath caught in his chest. This was no simple animal mimicking noise. The creature understood. It had seen his offerings on the stump. It had connected the food with safety, and now it was trying to tell him so. The realization hit him hard. He wasn't dealing with a mindless beast. This creature had intelligence enough to recognize kindness, enough to choose its words carefully. James stood frozen, every part of him aware that he was standing in the presence of something the world had never truly believed possible. The Bigfoot wasn't just watching anymore. It was speaking, and it wanted him to understand. In the weeks that followed, James noticed the creature drawing closer than before. At first, it stayed in the shadows, watching him from a safe distance. But slowly, with each passing evening, it stepped nearer, as if testing how much James would allow. When it spoke, the words were still broken, but they were clearer than before. Food. Good. It rumbled one night, its deep voice carrying easily across the quiet yard. James didn't move too quickly or raise his voice. He answered softly, repeating the word back. Food. Yes. The creature tilted its head, listening. Another evening, the words came again, this time in fragments that carried more meaning. Man. Cut trees. Bad. James nodded. He had seen the logging trucks push deeper into the forest. The creature seemed to understand his reaction, grunting low before adding, forest, home. Each time it tried, James gave simple, calm replies. He didn't push, didn't try to trap it with questions. He only listened and responded. He began to notice that the Bigfoot understood tone. When James spoke gently, the creature's posture relaxed. When James frowned or sounded firm, the Bigfoot would grunt low, as if it recognized disapproval. One evening, the words carried something new. Woman. Kind. James paused, unsure of what it meant, but the tone was soft, almost thoughtful. It was clear the creature was not only copying sounds but forming ideas of its own. That was when James knew this was no accident. It wasn't a bird mimicking, or a chance string of noises. The Bigfoot was reaching out with intent. It was building a bridge, piece by piece, through words. James realized with certainty this was more than mimicry. It was true communication. One cool evening, James sat outside as he often did, waiting. The forest was calm, and the light was fading. From the shadows, the creature appeared. It stepped closer than before, stopping within a short distance. Its heavy frame looked even larger in the twilight, and when it spoke, the words were clearer than James had ever heard. Men. Two kinds, it said slowly. The deep voice carried weight. It pointed a thick hand toward the horizon, then lowered it. Destroyers, protectors. James felt his chest tighten. He leaned forward slightly, careful not to move too quickly. "What do you mean?" he asked quietly, though he wasn't sure the creature would understand. The Bigfoot's brow furrowed, its mouth forming words with effort. "Most men cut, kill, take." The words came out harsh, spoken with a tone that carried frustration. James thought of the logging trucks again, the sound of chainsaws in the distance. It was clear the creature had seen the same thing, perhaps for years. After a pause, the Bigfoot continued. "Few. Respect. Give. Safe." Its tone softened, almost gentle now. The change in sound told James the creature was speaking of something good. He realized it was describing the difference it saw between people, those who destroyed and those who protected. James nodded slowly. "Yes, some bad, some good," he said carefully. The creature gave a low grunt, a sound that felt like agreement. Then came words that struck James harder than anything yet. "Most men bring death." The creature's deep eyes locked with his as it spoke, and James felt the truth in them. This was why they stayed hidden. Not out of fear of discovery, but because they knew most humans would only bring harm. James's throat felt dry, but he kept still. He did not argue, because he knew it was right. Too many men had cut the forests, hunted without care, and pushed wildlife into smaller and smaller corners. Yet, before the weight of those words could sink too deep, the Bigfoot added another phrase. "Some men bring peace." It paused, its head tilting slightly, watching James closely. "To them, we show." James's breath caught. In that moment, he realized the meaning. This creature was telling him that it had chosen him to see, to speak with. He was one of the few who had earned a place of trust. The bond formed by food on a stump and patience had become something greater. The Bigfoot was not just sharing thoughts. It was passing judgment on humanity as a whole. It recognized the good and the bad. It saw beyond actions to intent. And in its eyes, James Paul was one of the protectors. For a long time, neither moved. James sat still, trying to absorb the depth of what he had just heard. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath. He knew he would never again think of Bigfoot as just a mystery of the woods. This was not a legend. This was a people watching, judging, and choosing who to trust. And James had been chosen. One evening, the creature came closer than before. Its dark eyes held a weight that James had not seen. The tone of its voice was heavy, and its words were slower, more serious. "More come, danger," it said. James frowned. "What do you mean?" The Bigfoot pointed toward the hills, then to the sky, as if showing movement. "Men, many men, soon." James felt his chest tighten. Hunters, loggers, or strangers, looking to explore deeper into the forest. Whatever the reason, the message was clear. The balance of peace here would soon be broken. The creature continued. "Men cut, men take, noise, fire, bad." Its voice dropped, almost a growl. Then softer, it added, "You safe, but others not like." James understood. This was more than a warning of humans. It was a warning about the Bigfoot people themselves. Not all of them would accept his presence. The friendship they had built was unusual, maybe even forbidden. He asked quietly, "Will they hurt me?" The Bigfoot's expression shifted, not no, but not trust. Bond, danger. The words sank deep. James realized their connection. The trust they had built could put both of them at risk. If others of its kind saw him, they might see him as a threat. and if hunters came, they might see the creature as prey. The Bigfoot leaned closer, its massive shape casting a shadow across the firelight. Its voice was low, almost like a whisper carried by the trees. "Careful, James. Soon, choose. Stay away. Or lose." James sat in silence, the crackle of the fire filling the space between them. The message was clear. The time they had was short. One quiet evening, the forest was still. The sound of crickets and a soft wind through the trees surrounded James. Then, out of the dark, the Bigfoot stepped forward. This time, it came closer than ever before. Its tall frame moved slowly, carefully, as if measuring each step. James sat frozen, not out of fear but out of respect. He knew this moment was different. The creature stopped just a few feet away. Its deep, dark eyes locked with James's. For a long moment, neither moved. The air felt heavy with meaning, as if both understood something final was about to happen. Then, in its rough, broken voice, the Bigfoot spoke its last words. "James, friend, forest safe, trust." The words were simple, but they carried weight. James felt his chest tighten. He wanted to say something back, but no words came. The creature gave one last look, then turned. Its massive shape faded between the trees until it was gone, swallowed by the forest. James never saw it again. But the memory stayed with him. Bigfoot had spoken, and its message about humans, trust, and the forest would never be forgotten.